say some prayers to invoke auspiciousness. Mongol means auspiciousness. So you can also join in. Om Aginatamurandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurutam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manishtam Shtatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Siddhati Swamrantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tadakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Raghuratam Vitam Tam Shrivam Sadvaitam Sadvatam Harijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Param Sangana Alatra Shri Shavitam He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radha Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakam-bhaktarubhyascha Kripa-sindhu Vyayascha Pakitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Kachayine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasakyade Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurabhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this evening we're going to explain two different aspects of God. The majestic aspect, and that's called Aishvarya Gyan. What's Aishvarya Gyan? Aishvarya is opulence, majesty, and Gyan, knowledge. So knowledge of God's opulence, majesty, superiority, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the sweetness of God. Sweetness. A charm. There's a word, what is it now? It's a Latin word. Anyhow, come to me. So we'll start off with this. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Chapter 10, text 8. In the Bhagavad-gita, 700 verses, there are 4 seed verses. So this is the first one. It's the first seed verse. Chapter 10, text 8. So please, everyone. Aham.
Aham.
Sabasya.
Sabasya.
Prabhavo.
Prabhavo.
Mata.
Mata.
Savam.
Savam.
Avatite.
Avatite.
Iti madva.
Iti madva.
Ajantaimam.
Ajantaimam.
Buddha.
Buddha.
Bhava.
Bhava.
Samavitaha.
Samavitaha.
Aham Savasya Prabhavo Matatsavam Bhavatite Iti Mata Bhajantamam Buddha Bhava Samavitaha. Translation: I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly, the wise who perfectly know this, engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Repeat: I am the source.
I am the source
Of all spiritual material worlds.
of all spiritual and material worlds.
Everything emanates.
Everything emanates
From me.
from me.
The wise who perfectly know this.
The wise who perfectly know
Engage in my devotional service.
engage in my devotional service.
Worship me
Worship me
with all their hearts.
with all their hearts.
So, we'll start off reading Srila Prabhupada's commentary on this. A learned scholar who has studied the Vedas perfectly and has information from authorities like Lord Chaitanya, and who knows how to apply these teachings, can understand that Krishna is the origin of everything, both in the material and spiritual worlds. And because he knows this perfectly, he becomes firmly fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. He can never be deviated by any amount of nonsensical commentaries or by fools. So Prabhupada is saying nonsensical commentaries. So there's one recording where Prabhupada said there's 685 different commentaries on the Bhagavad-gita. 685. And I remember I also read commentary on Bhagavad-gita before I read Prabhupada's. And obviously I didn't understand anything. And I think anyone who reads any of these commentaries won't understand anything. The commentary has to be written in Vaishnava Sampradaya. It has to be written in a Vaishnava Sampradaya. So there are 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. You know the 4. The one we're in, Madhva. Now it's not Madhava, it's Madhva. Madhva Sampradaya. Then Sri Sampradaya, which is headed up by Ramanuja Acharya. And the third one, the Vishnu Sampradaya, is coming from Lord Shiva. It's called Vaishnava Sampradaya. What's it called? The third one.
Rudra.
Huh?
Rudra.
The Rudra Sampradaya, yes, obviously, Rudra, coming from Lord Shiva. And Vishnu Swami everyone has a main acharya. So Vishnu Swami in Rudra Sampradaya. And then Nimbakas, Nimbaka acharyas. I was speaking with Ram Govinda Maharaj, who's in Malaysia, and he knows people in the Nimbakas. And there are slightly differences. There are differences. So I guess we'll get a little bit technical to start off with. Sampradaya. Sam means connection. Pra means superior. And Daya, Sam, Pra, superior, the superior connection. Sampradaya. So there's not 3 sampradayas or not 5, there's 4. But they differ slightly. And it can get very technical. So technical that if I started to talk about it, I guarantee you would fall asleep. Even with your masks on. For instance, Sri Sampradaya, which is headed by Ramanuja Acharya, is Dvishta Advaita, purified oneness. And Madhva Sampradaya, which we're in, is Shuddha Dvaita, pure dualism. And Rudra Sampradaya, Vishnu Swami, is Shuddha Advaita, purified oneness. And Nimbakas are Dvaita Advaita. Can you repeat? Can someone stand up and just go over those again? So we're fortunate, we may not know all about this, but we're in the Madhvaracharya line, which is Shuddha pure Dvaita, dualism. And Lord Chaitanya modified it to a Chitta Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously one and different. We're actually a little different from the Madhvas. So all of them worship Krishna, and this verse is saying, Aham Savasya Prabhavo. From me everything emanates. So Krishna is the God of gods. He's the source of all demigods. Aham Ade Devanam, source of all demigods. He's the beginning, the middle, and the end. You know this verse. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sat Chit, and Ade Govinda. Sava Karana, there again, Karana, source of all sources. Then the word Ishvara Parama Krishna, what does that mean? Ishvara.
Ishvara, Param, the supreme controller.
The supreme controller, yeah. Ishvara Parama. Parama is supreme, Ishvara. So Ishvara Parama Krishna. So Krishna is the source of everything. So this is our level of preaching. When we preach, this is how we preach. Especially to non-devotees, perhaps to Hindus, agnostics. We establish the identity of God as the supreme being, the source of everything. And it's very majestic. It's very Aishvarya Gyan, awe and reverence. And this we have in Vaikuntha. And expansions of Vaikuntha is Ayodhya. So it's not Krishna, and Ayodhya, who is it? Ramchandra, but it's still reverential. It's so reverential that one of the acharyas said, Ramchandra only gave a flower garland to Sita twice. Twice. Now, how many times do you think Krishna gave a flower garland to the gopis and the gopis gave it to Krishna? Hundreds of times every day. So you see the difference. So Ayodhya and Dwarka are sort of, they're like expansions of Vaikuntha. And Vaikuntha is very majestic. It's very reverential. And our level for preaching all over the world is this type of worship. Even though we may have Radha and Krishna deities, we worship them in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan. And that is how it has been recommended by Prabhupada, the previous acharyas. We worship them in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, reverential. Very, what is the word now? Brain is going dull nowadays. Very finicky. It's very exact. Very precise worship. Very precise worship. Like I always remember this example of this Pujari at Radharanath. He's a very wonderful devotee. And he goes up on the altar and he lights the incense and then he goes, and it's like someone bringing out a saber sword or something. And he's counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. Oh, I'm not ringing the bell. Oh, gotta ring the bell. Gotta ring the bell. Gotta ring the bell. It's very precise. It's very exact. This is Vaikuntha. And actually, this is how we preach Krishna consciousness. But in Vrindavan, there's a different flavor. So if we accept that Krishna is the source of everything, then he's also the source of sweetness, is it not? He's also the source of charm and beauty. We don't talk so much about Lord Narayan, beauty. It's more splendor. But Krishna and Vrindavan, it's more charm, it's more beauty. On the word I was looking for, rhapsody. Rhapsody in Latin, it means to capture, to take. So Krishna's very rhapsodizing. He just captures, very rhapsodizing. Rhapsody. Rhapsody, charm, beauty. These are all emotions of the heart. It's all coming from the heart. And this is a higher level of bhakti also, where it comes from the heart. But one has to be more advanced. You can't be a neophyte, as it were. So in Krishna consciousness, we establish very much a Vaikuntha type of worship, where there's many rules and many regulations, and procedures, Achanaviti, so many rules, so many regulations. But the Vrindavan mood is not actually like that. Then you might say, well, I think I'll just skip, Vaikuntha mood and go straight to Vrindavan mood. You can't do that. You can't just skip. One has to become spiritually advanced. It can take 20, 30, 40 years before you start to develop some deeper feelings. But even the feeling of awe and reverence, reverential worship, it's very important. Not just important, it's essential. It's essential. Absolutely essential. And even if a devotee may be on a higher level, he or she, to set the example, will act with reverence and awe. And there are numerous examples. You've seen this on videos. Prabhupada greeting the deities. So what does he do? He bows down. Is it not? To Radha and Krishna, to Krishna and Balaram, he bows down. I remember when I was to Pujari in 1975 when Prabhupada came, half the devotees went on a morning walk with Prabhupada, and the other half went back to sleep. I've got to be honest. They were on that level of spontaneous sleep. They went back to sleep. There were just 3 ladies. There was only 3 ladies. And they cleaned Prabhupada's room, so they were active. So there I was all by myself. So what did I have to do? I had to bathe the deities, go on a time. I had to dress them. I had to get all the paraphernalia, because you greet the deities at 7 o'clock, so there's an arti. I had to clean the altar. Then I had to do the Guru Puja items for Prabhupada. make sure he had a garden, make the chandan, clean the temple, clean the Vyasa-san, decorate the Vyasa-san. Now, at that stage, and even now, I haven't learned how to expand myself. Thank God. I think we'd go a little mad if there was more than one of us, or one of me. Anyhow, so obviously I couldn't do it all. I couldn't clean the whole temple floor. It was Mali tiles. I couldn't do it. So what I did was I got a bucket of water and I put eucalyptus oil in it. And then I figured out, now Prabhupada stands there. I understand he's 5'2", I get take measure out. I'd figure out where his nose would go. And then that area I would wipe with eucalyptus oil. So I would think, yes, I fooled the guru. I never cleaned the whole temple. Just where his head would go and he'd smell it. Very crafty. And I couldn't even change the deities. I couldn't even bathe the deity. I didn't even have time. I just hoped that Prabhupada wouldn't notice they were in the same outfit that they were in the day before. And that he would, maybe he did notice and didn't say anything, but I just sort of moved the flower garland around him and hoped that he wouldn't notice. So Prabhupada set that example, and we all follow that. But now just imagine the cowherd boys in the morning. They come to see Krishna in underground. And millions of cowherd boys. It said that each cowherd boy had up to 10 billion cows. There's a figure in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 10 trillion, some had 10 billion, some had 1 billion. It's all inconceivable, but then that's the spiritual world. And they all go into the courtyard of Krishna, which is the size of this room. And they see Krishna, and they joke with him, oh, you've got up now, and they help dress him. They do not offer their obeisances. They're not going flat out obeisances. When the gopis see Krishna and he plays his flute and they come running, the first thing they do is not to offer their obeisances, is to look at Krishna, with very tantalizing eyes. So this is the Vrindavan mood. But you can't immediately adopt this. It's something very special, and it's not an easy thing to even understand. So we got this wonderful verse. So I guess families who come together in the same car where there's no problem with, distancing, can share one. But other single people, you can have this actually. So the only thing is you didn't put who is by. So give out, everyone take one, but when 2 or 3 people together, if they're family, you can share it and they can sit, because we're sitting closely together in the car. Because I don't know how to. So this is a verse from Srila Bilvamangala Thakura, great devotee of the Lord. And it's called Krsna-karanamrta. Krsna-karanamrta, text 92. And it's very beautiful. It's in Sanskrit. So we're going to all sing it together. And you can keep the sheets also. So Krishna, Srila Bilvamangala Thakura. Let me just give you a little background. Srila Bilvamangala Thakura, the story of, is very attached in his younger life to a lady who unfortunately was a prostitute. And he became overly attached to this lady. And the story, the different versions of the story, Bilvamangala, this is before, he appeared before Lord Chaitanya. So around about 800 or 900 years AD. And one day there was a terrible storm. It was a monsoon. It was raining. And he felt lust. Lust comes on us like this. So he wanted to go and see this prostitute. It's an Chintamani. That was an ancient Chintamani. So there was a raging river. A raging river. And he couldn't swim because he was an Indian. Although there are some Indians who can swim very well, but they're in the minority. Remember the minority group. Rajvansi's minority. The minority front. So anyhow, he saw this raging river, and he just said, "It doesn't matter, I can't swim." And he threw himself into the river, and he tried to swim some or other up and down, and he started to drown. So he grabbed onto what he thought was a log that was floating. But then he found out it wasn't a log, it was actually a dead body. Apparently there's a tradition where previously bodies were actually put into the Ganges and the Jamuna. Whole bodies, actually, complete bodies. So he's holding on to this body and he's pushing himself to the other side of the river. And somehow he gets to the other side of the river. And he's frantic and mad with lust and passion. Bilvamangala. And then he comes to the property of the lady. And she's very wealthy, she's very rich. She's a high class prostitute. If you can have such a thing, I guess you can. Of course, I don't know about all these things. Anyhow. So there's a big wall. Like big wall, security wall, cement. So he tries to climb up it, he grabs ivory, he grabs vines. Unknown, he grabs a snake, but he pulls himself up, there's a big snake. I guess you call it a boa constrictor or anaconda or something. Pulls himself up, gets to the top of the wall. And then he trips and he falls down onto the other side of at least he's in the property, but he's hit his head and he's almost passing out. Somehow or other they find him and they carry him to the prostitute's house. She has maidservants. And then she says to him, if you could, you swam the river, you held onto a dead body, I've heard, and the snake, and now you've fallen and hit your head. And if you could have as much enthusiasm, utsaham, for Krishna as you do for me, you would be very spiritually advanced. Utsaham nishtaya daya. Utsaham means enthusiasm. Nectar of Instruction, text number 3. You've got to be a little enthusiastic. Like you'd come here tonight. Now it's cold. We've got the heaters going. There's always the chance of COVID. But you have some enthusiasm. Devotees are sitting on the floor. There has to be some enthusiasm. When the alarm clock goes off at 4 o'clock, there's got to be some enthusiasm. Otherwise you just turn it off and do what? Go back to sleep, to fast. There's got to be some enthusiasm. It's not easy to fast. Walk around Govardhan Hill. How many people walked around Govardhan Hill? It's 25 kilometers. It's not a walk in the park, 10 meters. It's 25 kilometers. And if you can, you do it without shoes. if you can. So you need, I remember walking around Govardhan Hill with Shutakama Prabhu, the temple president. He was my good friend. We made it 3/4 of the way and I couldn't manage anymore. I had to lie down on the side of the parikram and sleep. So I lied down on the side and just slept for half an hour. And then I finished it. I couldn't do it. So you need enthusiasm. Spiritual life, enthusiasm is the key. So Chintamani, the prostitute, said to Bilvamangala, if you had as much enthusiasm for Krishna, Radha and Krishna, devotional service, then actually, as you do for me, to see me, to have illicit sex with me, you'd actually be very advanced. Now, the next part of the story is that Bilvamangala was not an ordinary person. In the past, he had already made advancement. And it's called Purva Samskara. Samskara means you have spiritual impressions. And Purva means before. And usually it means not before in this lifetime, but last lifetime and the one before that. Adunik Samskara means impressions in this lifetime. Like when you were young, you went to Rath Yatra, you went to the tent campaign, you went to the opening of the Radha temple. Many people did that. So that's this lifetime. That's called Adunik. So Bilvamangala had this from the past. He was already actually quite spiritually advanced from the past. And these words of Chintamani struck him very strongly. And he became vairagya, he became detached. And he decided, yes, you've spoken right. This is important information. And at that point, he accepted Chintamani as his guru. He actually accepted it as a guru. There's many different types of guru. There's Nam Guru, there's Diksha Guru, there's Sannyas Guru, Shravana Guru, Sannyas Guru, many different. Siksha Guru, I already said Diksha Guru, Bhatma Pradakshika Guru. So Bilvamangala changed his life. And he started to chant Krishna's holy name. He started to practice. But it's said by the acharyas, he was actually already on Ashakti, which is a very advanced, none of us are on that stage. It goes Shraddha, you have some faith, and then Sadhu Sangha, you associate. Then in the association of devotees, Bhajana Kriya. Kriya means to do, activity, bhajan, you start chanting. You start following the principles. You follow Ekadashi. Then the next stage, Anatana Vritti, the lust and the anger and the greed start coming out of the heart. Then after some years, that can take 10 or 20 years, you come to Nishta. You're steady in your bhakti. You're steady, chanting every day. You're steady, reading Bhagavad-gita. It's not up and down. It's not fluctuating. You're steady, Nishta. And then beyond Nishta is Ruchi. You have real taste. So Nishta is more intelligence. Ruchi is more real taste. And then when Ruchi becomes concentrated, when it becomes condensed, more advanced. So you could say advanced Ruchi, it's Ashakti. And that is very, very, very advanced. And then after Ashakti, Sudasattva comes to you, and you come to the stage of Bhav. So Bhav is devotional service and ecstasy. But you go higher than that. Bhav matures into praying, but not in this material world. You've got to give up your body. You have an Indian or European body, or male body. You've got to give it up. You can't go beyond Bhav in this physical body. You can't withhold it. You can't handle it. It's like I go to ISKCON and there's a substation with 330,000 volts and 1,000 amps. and I put a 1 amp fuse, half an amp fuse, a 0.1% amp fuse into ISKCON's electrical substructure. What happens to the fuse? It ceases to exist. It's obliterated. It dissolves. So praying, you can't handle praying in this body of flesh. You can't. You need a spiritual. So that's when you get a spiritual body. So our Shakti is very advanced, and it's been said by certain acharyas that Bilvamangala was actually on a Shakti. Perhaps not of this particular occasion with Chintamani, but the story continues. He chanted, he practiced. It's not mentioned for how many years, although it is said that Bilvamangala Thakura lived for hundreds of years, which is difficult to understand. 500 or 600 years. It's very difficult to understand that. It's been said. So one day, Bilvamangala, at a certain point later on in his life, became a little agitated again. So even on a Shakti, sometimes this residue of lust, it can come. Above a Shakti is Bhav. Even on the stage of Bhav, you can get a sniff, Ganda sniff of lust, or pride, or anger. One acharya said 2%. 2%. So Bilvamangala saw this young Brahmin lady, very beautiful, and she was Brahminical, and he became attached to her. Some lust came. And Bilvamangala felt very remorseful. He felt discouraged. Just like all of you, if somehow or other you accidentally, someone hands you alcohol, and they say, no, it's Monis grape juice. But it's not, it's a 1959 French vintage wine. And you end up drinking it, and then they say, well, you just drank wine. How do you feel? Guilty, remorseful. You feel, why did I do that? I feed the dog. There's a dog that lives next door to me. It's a sheep. Beautiful dog. And I feed the dog every day chapati. I put salt on the chapati so the dog will enjoy it more. Sometimes I give it pizza. And then I rub the dog. Because there's that pastime, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ancharila, chapter 1, of Shivananda Singh becoming attached to a dog, and the dog going back to Godhead. So there's a whole thing about a dog in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's nothing about cows. The whole CC, there's nothing about cows. Dog. So it's all right. So I feed the dog, but I thought, just to help the dog more, let me take a nibble. So I take a nibble. So I did it on the Kadashi without thinking. Then Amida felt bad. So then I followed the Ekadashi the next day. So when you do things, you feel remorseful. So Bilvamangala Thakura, he felt embarrassed. He felt remorseful. So he decided, I'm going to do something about this. It's called prayaschita. You know what that word prayaschita? Atonement. Atonement. I did something wrong. I've got to atone. So he followed the lady home, and he went to the house, knocked on the door, and he explained to the husband his situation and how he had felt lust, and he was embarrassed. It could have been quite strong lust. Anyhow, then he asked the lady for some hairpins. They have in their hair hairpins. And then with these hairpins, he pierced his eyes. he plucked his eyes. He stuck the hairpin into his eyes and he blinded himself. Now, we don't recommend this. If you look at some lady, Miss South Africa or Miss Bollywood, and you feel something, I don't blame you. It's life. But the point to understand is Bilvamangala was so advanced that when he slipped very slightly, this is what he did. We wouldn't expect any of you to do that. We wouldn't ask you to do it. Actually, we would tell you not to do it. It's imitating. We're not on that high level, it's imitating. Anyhow, Bilvamangala plucked his eyes out. So now he's blind. So he continues to practice Krishna consciousness. And then the famous story is he decided to go to Vrindavan, but he's blind. So he's walking to Vrindavan, and one young boy introduces himself. He says, I'll take you to Vrindavan. He's on the outskirts of Vrindavan, holds his hand and takes him into Vrindavan. And then Bilvamangala realizes that this young boy is actually Krishna. Somehow he has that realization. And he tries to embrace the boy. The boy pulls away from him. And then Bilvamangala, it is said that you can distance yourself from me, you can retreat, but you can't retreat from my heart. You're in my heart. You can't escape in my heart. So this is a story. So Bilvamangala wrote this verse, presumably when he had vision. Krsna-karanamrta. And it's very famous, Krsna-karanamrta. So we're going to say it together. So word for word after me. Maduram. Maduram. Vapu. Asya. Vibhu. Maduryam. Maduryam. Vadanam Maduram. Madhu Gandhi. Madhusmitam. Itadaho. Maduram, Maduram. Maduram, Maduram. What do you think? Isn't that a nice verse? How it just flows. It's Sanskrit. It's very wonderful. Let's do it again. Maduram, Maduram. Vapu Asha Vibho. Maduram, Maduram. Vadanam, Maduram. Vadanam means face. So Maduram, we know, means sweet. This word Maduram, Madhu. So Madhu can mean bee. Madhu can mean sweet. From the word Madhu came Madhumangala. From the word Madhu came Madhurya, Madhurya Ras, which is conjugal love for Krishna. So it can mean Madhu can mean different things, but in how Bilvamangala has used it is simply sweetness. So let's do it again. Maduram, Maduram. Vapu Asya Vibhu. Maduram, Maduram. Vadanam, Maduram. Madhu Gandhi. Madhusmitam. Etad Aho. Maduram, 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 Maduram. Maduram, 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 Maduram. So you can learn this verse if you like. It's a very nice verse. So repeat after me. Oh my Lord, the transcendental body of Krishna, very sweet, and his face is even sweeter than his body. The soft smile on his face, which is like the fragrance of honey, is sweeter still. So first the body, then the face, then the smile. Sometimes it's also said the eyes, the body, the face, the eyes. Vajami radam aravindhanitram smamami radam smitasya radam vadami ram tatomamam yasti gatirmaham kapi Vajami radam aravindhanitram. The eyes of Radharani, Nitram, are very beautiful. So here is the mouth, the mouth. Like right now I'm looking at all of you and I can't see your mouth. So I don't really know whether you're bored. I would expect you were bored because I'm talking. Or whether you're interested in the person who's sitting in front of you and looking at her sari or what she's wearing. I'm not too sure because I can't see. But the mouth expresses so much, doesn't it? Than the eyes express. So Krishna is the Lord of all sweetness. Whatever we see as sweet in this world, it's coming from God, the absolute truth. Bhagavatam janmirasya yata. That the absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. So anything which you see as sweet, anything you see as beautiful, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some person sees one thing as beautiful, like the sunset, and someone else sees something as beautiful. But all beauty is personified in Krishna. It all comes from Krishna. And Krishna's beauty is unlimited. The beauty of a sunset, sun rising, it's limited. But Krishna's beauty is unlimited. We can't understand this because there's nothing we come in contact with which is unlimited. It just doesn't exist. When we say Krishna is the oldest, then we think of our grandfather, our great-grandfather. We can't go beyond 150 years. But the oldest means billions and billions and trillions. And beauty. We think our wife is beautiful. We think our husband is beautiful. Especially the child, the son, the daughter, very beautiful. But you put all this beauty together and it's personified in Krishna. Charm. It all comes from Krishna. Charm. Eloquence. Eloquence. Dancing skills. Singing skills. We're very much into dancing and singing, especially when you're younger. You've got the energy. When you get a little older, you can't make it. So it all comes from Krishna. But actually, superior to Krishna's charm and beauty and eloquence and dancing abilities and singing and playing musical instruments is who? Radharani. Her beauty is even more. Her skills are even more. I'll give you an example. You may never have heard this before. There's a music shop in, I don't know if they exist in Santon City. Is there a music shop? Imagine, music shop in Bombay. And the person who owns the music shop, he sells pianos, saxophone, he plays, he sells violins, and he knows a little bit about every instrument. But he's not expert. So that's like Krishna. He has this shop of ras. But Radharani, she's expert at playing the violin or the sitar, the saranga, the tampura. So whatever qualities Krishna has, Radharani, his pleasure potency, has more. She just has more. So actually, confidentially, being Rupanuga's, We are worshippers of Radharani. Therefore, you could say we are Shakti worshippers. They are Shakti worshippers. But Shakti worshippers in Hinduism usually means the worship of Kali, Durga, Mahabhadra Kali. Of course, Kali, Durga, many names. What other names she has? Uma, Ambika. Any other names? Ma, Devi. She's called Devi sometimes. But she's expansion of Lakshmi in Vaikuntha, and Lakshmi is expansion of Radharani. So we're actually Shakti worshippers. But we don't preach, we preach no Krishna is God, and we keep it like that. I will just finish off. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is at Radhakund. He went there a number of times. Sometimes he'd even take bath in Radhakund, although usually he didn't. There's a picture of him going to Radhakund in a motor car. It's a Jaguar. And the driver is his secretary, Kunjabi Hari, who's wearing a suit. And in the back seat is his very close friend, Paramananda, who's wearing a suit. Bhaktisiddhanta is wearing red saffron. And he's challenging the so-called Babajis of Radhakund and Vrindavan. And they get together and they say, you're spoiling the ambience by coming with a suit. They used to call it suited and booted. Suited and booted. You're spoiling Vrindavan, you're spoiling Radhakund, coming in a motor car. Now you have to think, this is 1932. They hardly ever seen a car. You know that? I remember going to Vrindavan in 1978, and you'd rarely see a car come into the Krishna and Balaram on that road, that road. You'd rarely see a car. In those days, a rickshawwala, you could go to the Ganges, the Jhurun, for 75 pice. Now it's 75 rupees. And there's traffic jams the whole way. So now imagine in 1932, people, they'd never even seen cars. Many persons never even seen. So he's going in a Jaguar. It's not even a small-time car. It's a Jaguar convertible. And they're challenging him. You're spoiling the ambience of Radhakund and Vrindavan. And Bhaktisiddhanta, he responds by saying, I am not spoiling it. You are spoiling it by imitating Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. You are imitators. You are spoiling it. You're imitating being one of the Goswamis, smoking bidis, having illicit sex, just sleeping and eating, and just collecting pice. And there's a picture of him actually in the car. It's quite interesting. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was at Radhakund, and the Maharaj of Bharatpur came to Radhakund, and he was doing Dandavat Prakama around Radhakund. Now you can do this. It's stand up and you go flat. And then you put a stone where you land, and then you stand up and you go flat. Dandavat. The men go flat, the women will go on their sides. You can do this around Radhakund. It would take you perhaps 2 hours. And many devotees do this. Govinda Maharaj has done it. Many, you see all the time devotees doing it. So the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta, they rushed to him where he was staying. That's from Nandastakada Kunj. And they said, yes, Maharaj Bharatpur, such an important man. He's doing parikama, dandavat, flat, parikama, around Radhakund. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, yes, But the difference is, he is worshipping Radharani to please Krishna. We are worshipping Krishna to please Radharani. Totally the opposite. You understand? So he made that point. But it's confidential. And it's not something one advertises everywhere. And for general preaching, Sunday morning and Rath Yatra, Sunday talks and stuff, we emphasize Krishna and his majestic power, that he's the source of everything, and Ishvara Parama Krishna. How many times Prabhupada said that verse? The source of everything. So this is appropriate for our international preaching to congregation, to newcomers that come. Otherwise they misunderstand. They won't understand. So let's do it again. Madhurya Madhuram Vapu Asya Vibhu Madhuram Madhuram Vadanam Madhuram Madhu Gandhi Madhu Smitam Etad Aho Madhuram 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 Madhuram. O my Lord, the transcendental body of Lord Krishna is very sweet, and his face is even sweeter. The soft smile on his face, which is like the fragrance of honey, is still sweeter. Srila Bilvamangala Thakura Krsna-karanamrta, text 92. So would anyone like to add any comments or commentary or ask any questions? Oh yes, you may put your hand down and you may ask your question, nice and aloud.
Thank God. I'm just trying to understand, we can see Srila Prabhupada is an eternal associate of the Lord, but then he appears in a material body, but surely he is on the level of prema. So I'm just trying to understand how...
Yes. Very good question, because I said the body can't take praying. So this body cannot take praying. Praying is too intense. And actually the essence of praying, you go higher than praying, you go to sneha. There's madhu sneha and grita sneha. Madhu, honey like, grita, ghee like. Which is superior, honey or ghee?
Ghee.
Honey. Honey is sweeter. They look the same, they feel the same, but madhu sneha, honey affection, is superior. So that's Radharani. Grita sneha, ghee-like, is Chandravali. So anyhow, sneha, and then beyond sneha, it's called man. Then beyond man is pranaya. And beyond prana is rag, then beyond rag is anurag, and then beyond anurag is mahabhav. But then you have ruda mahabhav, you have aviruda mahabhav, and then you go to modanaikya adiruda mahabhav, and then mohanaikya adiruda mahabhav. Do you understand? We have a long way to go. That is the conclusion. We have a long way to go. So Yoga Maya interferes and suppresses the spiritual emotion that Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktivinoda, the 6 Goswamis would have, so they can survive in the body and not leave their bodies. And in doing that, they preach. Raghunath Das Goswami, he's always crying, he's always weeping, he's not eating much. But if he experienced full separation, he'd immediately die. And the purpose of him coming here in this material world was to set an example. So he set an example. He lived at Radhakund for 48 years. He offered obeisances to the Lord 1,000 times every day. Dui Sahasra. He offered obeisances to the Vaishnavas. Dui, 2,000 times every day. He took bath 3 times a day in Radhakund. He spoke about Lord Chaitanya 3 hours a day. He slept Chari Danda. Danda is 24 minutes. Chari is 4. I ask you, what is 4 times 24?
96.
96 minutes he would sleep. Walk around Radhakund every day and eat perhaps once a day or maybe twice a day a little bit of buttermilk. So that's the example. So his separation, because he's here and Radha and Krishna are there, had to be like subdued. So Yoga Maya came in and covered it. So he could live, but he only just survived because he's always feeling separation. So this is the same with Arjuna on the battlefield. Why did Arjuna become bewildered? Same with Bhaktivinoda, Bhaktisiddhanta, we understand the same with Srila Prabhupada. If Srila Prabhupada was feeling the full separation, then, and other emotions that go with it, he wouldn't stay within his body. Then he wouldn't be able to come to the West, then he wouldn't be able to preach. So Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya, Yoga Maya covered. And the internal bhav, shrunken. What's the word for shrunken? Sitila. It's shrunken. It's shrunken. So that's how we understand the great liberated souls like the 6 Goswamis and Bhaktivinoda and Narottam and Srinivas and Shakananda, Rasakananda. Yoga Maya had a mission for them, was to preach. So their emotions, their spiritual emotions, were somewhat subdued. But sometimes they spilled over. And we see this sometimes Prabhupada would become emotional. But momentarily, just a little bit. Not all the time. Can you imagine if Prabhupada all the time is emotionally weeping? Where's the preaching? So Yoga Maya covered. Yoga Maya. Not Maya. We are covered by Mahamaya. We're on the opposite end. And we have a long way to go. But we have our ticket. Everyone has a ticket. You all have your ticket. You got your visa. And recently you got inoculated. Recently you got your vaccine. But you can't go to India, even with a vaccine, even with a visa, even with a passport, because the airports are closed. And even if they're open, you're not ready to go. It's foolish. Wait. Next year perhaps. So you wait a little, and pure love will come. Narottam gives the example, I give all of you a mango, but it's not ripe. It's kacha. But you keep that mango in a safe place, and that mango will become. So love of God in Shanta Sakya Vatsalya Madhurya Vaikuntha Ayodhya, it will come. But you've got to be also a little patient. And if you're not patient, Prabhupada will give the example, you become like the monkey that jumps from one branch to another. So we don't become monkeys. In 1975, Prabhupada had one disciple that left the Krishna Bharam temple and went to stay at Radhakund. Prabhupada was very angry. He wasn't pleased. He called for that disciple. He said, what are you doing living there? You should associate the devotees here. And Sasrit Maharaj writes in the Prabhupada Lilamrita that Prabhupada was shaking. He was out of concern for his disciple. So we have to be enthusiastic, at the same time a little patient. Rome was not built in one day. You got to be a little patient, but at the same time, enthusiastic. Is that clearer? So is Yoga Maya. It can't be anything else. Yoga Maya covers Raghunath Das Goswami, it covers Sanatana, it covers Bhaktivinoda, it covered Arjuna on the battlefield, it covered Prabhupada, Occidental, all these liberated souls. It covers them. And then they can perform some purpose, they do something in the material world. Prabhupada preached all over the world. Rupa Goswami wrote books. It covers them. Otherwise they'd give up their lives immediately. You want to do that? Immediately? If you knew you were going back to Vrindavan, would you? Well, my wife, I'm a little worried about my wife. Got to feed the dog. Anyhow, we're practicing and we continue chanting Hare Krishna, and as I said, we have that ticket. We all have that ticket. We're connected to Prabhupada. Some of you are initiated, grand disciples. Some of you may not be. It's all right. Still, you have faith in Prabhupada. That's the ticket. But you can't use the ticket right now. And I gave the example of COVID. You can't use that ticket right now. It's not. So any other? You'd like to add something? Someone? Or further question?
Right. How do we perform atonement for something that we may have done, but we are obviously on a much lower level than Bilvamangala. So how do we on this lower level?
How does a devotee perform atonement? You see, a materialist, like in the mode of goodness, atonement, they'll give in charity. Build a hospital, arcade gardens. But a devotee's atonement is to chant more, increase your rounds, read a little more perhaps. If you feel you've done something wrong that's not proper, fast that one day. If you've offended a particular devotee and you think you have, then pray to that devotee, go to that devotee, apologize, and give a gift to that devotee. A gift. Atonement, prayaschita. So spiritual atonement is just to increase our devotion. Worship the deity more. Yeah. And many times there's a slip between the cup and the lip. There's a slit between the cup and the lip. You think you're planning for the best, but you slip and you say something to someone or you do something, or like I took grain on a Kadashi because I was giving it to the dog. Now I have signs, A4 laminated signs. Today is a Kadashi. And I have it at the end of my bed. I have it with all my grains. Dried rice from Jagannath Puri. Dried rice from Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. I have it. Today is a Kadashi now, I can't touch it. I can't put it in my mouth. I can put it on my head, but I can't. It's dried rice from Jagannath Puri, from my godbrothers. Do you have Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj's dried rice? Ay, ay, ay. Well, I'm willing to supply you for a certain price. Now, I have dried rice from at least 30 devotees. Dried rice is the best, because it'll last 10 years. I mean, if we were smart, we would have offered Prabhupada a big plate of white basmati rice. He would have taken a little bit. We would have dried it. And 50 years later, you can take that one grain, or you can wear it on a tablet around your neck, or you can put it on your altar. We weren't very smart. No one told us this. We didn't know. So it's nice to dried rice, dried chapati, because that keeps. But sabjis don't. They go rotten. Anything anyone else would like to ask?
Maharaj, in Gaur Leela, so the same question like Michaela.
Gaur Leela.
Yes, so when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glanced at various people and gave them Krishna Prem, do we understand it as him being, or them being subdued by Yoga Maya, or them being liberated, or them having spiritual bodies?
The associates of Lord Chaitanya were the primary associates. Whatever they do, it's all orchestrated by Yogamaya. Like Shivananda became attached to a dog. It's an arrangement of Yogamaya. They appear to have material bodies, but it's spiritual, but they're practicing, and it's called sadhana vesh. Vesh means body, sadhana means they're practicing sadhana, as against siddha vesh. Siddha vesh is what they are in the spiritual world. Shivananda Sain in the spiritual world is a gopi, and he's a messenger called Vira Gopi. But in the material world, he took the form of Shivananda, and he would always be taking messages from one person to another. And he used to organize all the devotees when they would walk from Navadvip to Puri. There was one nice devotee. It's an interesting story. He was born in Calcutta, and he was always a Vaishnava. But he wasn't he didn't take initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta or Prabhupada. But he was always inclined to bhajan. And we called him Dada. And he went to live at Radhakund, this is 30 years ago. He went to live at Radhakund 3 years, and he didn't like it because he wanted to be a cowherd boy. And he didn't. And everything there is Radha, Krishna, Jai Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And he didn't feel quite so comfortable. So when the Krishna Balaram temple opened, he went and moved into the Krishna Balaram temple, stayed in the guest house. And you know what his job was? Dada. He would take the letters the post sent and individually go to each devotee, knock on their door, and give them a letter, the letters. And that's what cowherd boys, some of them do. They take messages from Krishna to Radharani. So he did the same thing, and he loved it. And then he passed away about 10 years ago, Dada. But he was very humble, very quiet, chanting all day, but he loved his service. So when you put two and two together, you can see how it... Dada. Very nice. Anything else? Another one.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I also also just trying to understand how we're aspiring to follow in the footsteps of the gopis, slowly but surely, but it also may be that our eternal position may not be in Goloka Vrindavan, but may be somewhere else in Vaikuntha, worshipping another form of
Yeah. So every living entity in this universe, all of you sitting in this room, all the ducks outside there on the pond, there's 4 rabbits that live under the security guard. We feed them cabbage. All the birds, all the sardines, every living entity in this universe has one of 5 relationships with Krishna. Not 6 and not 4, and you can't make them up. And you don't choose it. You already have it, but you just have forgotten it, that's all. You've forgotten it, it's covered. It's like, I've got a watch, but it's covered, you can't see it. So your sthai bhav, or your permanent relationship with Krishna, sthai means permanent, cannot be changed. And it's either neutrality, shantaras, or dasya, you're a servant, like Hanuman, or you're a friend, like Madhumangal, cowherd boys. Arjuna also is friend. Or your mother. So mother is? She's number 1. Yeah, for the women's liberation. She's number 1 in Vatsalya Ras. And then Madhurya Ras, you have to be a woman. There's no same sex in the spiritual world. You've got to be a gopi. And that's Madhurya. So 1 of 5, every living entity has this. And gradually, as you engage in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, you begin to realize that it's gradual. I'm talking about 20, 30, 40, 50 years, strict. No playing around. Principles. No playing around at all. Minimum 16, if not 1 lakh every day. Then you begin to understand. Gradually. And then whatever is your relationship, that is what you want. So you go to Hanuman. Where's Hanuman? Ayodhya. What's his relationship? Dasyaras. He said, wouldn't you like to be a gopi? No. Wouldn't you like to play with Krishna? No. Do you even want to know about Krishna? No. I am only interested in... You see? That's how it works. So, if you're Prahlad Maharaj, you're only interested in Nrsimhadev. You're not interested in Krishna. But Lord Chaitanya is the source of all incarnations. So people who are devoted to Nrsimhadev can also see in Lord Chaitanya Nrsimhadev. So there's a great devotee, his name was Purushottama Mishra. And he's actually not even a jiva, he's an expansion Lord Chaitanya. He was so attached to Lord Nrsimhadev that Lord Chaitanya changed his name and called him Nrsimhananda. So he went from Pradyumna Mishra to, and there's a whole chapter on Pradyumna Mishra. The Chaitanya, he's so important, there's a whole chapter. So whatever is your relationship, that's what you're happiest at. So if you're a yogi and you want to meditate on Paramatma, there are people like this, 4-handed Paramatma, then that's all you want. And if someone comes along and says, wouldn't you like to play with Krishna? No. Wouldn't you like to have Krishna sit on your lap like a baby? No. Wouldn't you like to dance on the bank of the river Jamuna at Vamsivat? No. All I want is this. So this is called your sthai bhav and your eternal relationship with Krishna. And it will come in the course of time. But you can't rush it, you can't push it, you can't force it. It will come. Therefore this patience is required, you see. And people who try to force it, or pretend, or push it, become what is called sajiyas. And a sahaji is someone who pretends, puts on a bit of an act. So you don't choose it. It's like I give to you a mango seed, and you have it in your hand. I give to you an apple seed. Yeah? I give to you a banyan seed. Now there's the seed. You can't change it, you can't swap it. It's a seed that is never lost. It's there. But looking at that seed, you don't know whether it's a banyan tree, or an apple tree, or a mango tree. But you water it by hearing and chanting, it gradually will grow. But it may take some time. So this is our sthai bhav. You already have it. But what to speak of your relationship with Krishna? We've even forgotten Krishna. We've even forgotten him. What to speak of our relationship with him? Is it a bit clearer? So there's no choosing. Thank you. Anything else? Good time to ask. So we'll end with a 5-minute kirtan, if that's all right. And thank you all very much for coming, and hopefully, according to protocol, COVID will have next Saturday, but this all, of course, depends on what's happening. So it's a little touch and go, but we have to follow these rules and protocols. By the way, I'm so serious about following the protocol that yesterday night, or Thursday night, I went to Virgin Active, and with my mask, I swam. You don't believe me? So I had Vishnu take a picture. Right? You never know. Fish may give it to you or something. All right, so let's have a little kirtan, please. 5 minutes, and then we'll finish.